Welcome back to Bash to the Bone. I'm Denny.
I'm Al.
We are your hosts, and yes, it has been a minute, but we're back, Al.
Yep, we are here.
And are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's get this thing started.
So, it's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
Yeah. A little bit of real life getting in the way.
Yeah, you were on the weather for a little bit.
Yeah, I was knocked flat on my ass.
And I followed right after that. And what was crazy, we hadn't seen each other. And it was a while since we saw each other.
It'd been like a week.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, how the hell did I get sick? I didn't get it from Al because we ain't seen each other in a while.
Yeah. I was knocked on my ass with like a fever of 103 and and you weren't much better. And
no, and on top of we had, here at this house, we had graduations and weddings and all that shit piling up the weekends, and it was just
it's a whole
hectic.
lot of real life.
It really was.
And
all good except for the illness. That sucked ass, but
yeah, that did. When you're so sick you can't even enjoy lying there and watching Netflix.
That's bad. That is definitely bad.
Oh God, yeah. And then in the meantime, I'm trying to do all the shit to get ready to retire.
Yeah, you're getting ready to pop smoke. So
yeah.
man, they probably think you're just burning up your leave.
No. Well,
they're like,
yeah. It was bad. They knew I was sick because if I'm out, and I say I'm sick, I'm sick.
You're sick, yeah.
I'm sick, yeah.
Not just sick of work.
Well, I'm that too, but...
Hey, but on the other night, we do have these fancy glasses and ice cubes.
We do. Would you like to tell everybody what this is? Because I thought this was awesome.
No, these are fucking awesome. I'm so excited about them. And that was the other thing. I haven't been able to get on the show to even enjoy these yet. So this is the first time I've actually used these. But so my daughter recently got married, and my sister and my brother-in-law ended up getting stuck at the airport for hours, couldn't fly in from Nashville, and they didn't make it, so we didn't get to see them, but they did come in for Mother's Day. And my brother-in-law, he comes into my folks' house, and he's like, everybody talks about the bride and the bridesmaids and the mother of the bride, and they get this and they get that, and nobody gets anything for the father of the bride.
No, you get plenty of things. You get bills.
Oh, I got those.
You get lots of those bills.
I did, but luckily he wasn't thinking bills, so he's like, I saw something, thought you'd appreciate it, and he goes, and we picked it up. So he and my sister handed me this bag, and in it was these highball glasses. But
yeah.
What's great is they have Darth Vader's head etched on them.
Oh, but there's more.
And there is more. And if you know anything about Al and I, we have a
ginormous Star Wars nerds.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we'll just.
That is what it is.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that cannot be overstated.
No,
but
not at all.
It really can't.
I mean, nobody's acting. Of course, this is a podcast, so nobody could actually see my house.
We'll have to put some pictures. We'll have to put that on the website at some point.
Oh boy,
it's impressive.
Yeah.
And if you don't like Star Wars, then you're not gonna like it.
You're like, what a bunch of nerds.
But so the glasses are cool as shit, but with it came these little molds to put ice in, and it makes a Darth Vader head ice cube.
It's nerd-tastic.
Shut the fuck up.
It's nerd-tastic.
It is awesome.
I love it. And of course, I mean, it was a given that we were drinking while we're doing this.
Yes.
But,
now we get to do it with a Darth Vader glass with Vader's head in there.
Yeah, Darth Vader ice cubes.
It don't get any better.
That's fantastic. I love it.
So it's just cool as shit. So thank you to my brother-in-law and my sister. Awesome. Well done.
Woohoo!
We are enjoying it. And I know they're listening.
All right. So, do we want to get on to our episode for tonight?
The actual real show? Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a guest tonight.
Yes, we do. And we've had some technical difficulties getting here, but we're here now.
Which has been the Achilles heel of this show.
Everybody said podcasting is easy. They lied.
They either lied. I don't want to say it, so they lied. We're going to go with that. We're going to go with they lied.
Yeah. So, do you want to introduce our guest for tonight?
Yes. So we have Kari tonight with us, and Kari is a long-time dispatcher in emergency communications, and she's worked in some different areas there, but definitely got a really different take on exposure to trauma and emergency incidents and handling it from that communications aspect. And I really think that probably when you listen to this, you'll realize some things that we realized that we just didn't understand or even know.
No, when we were going, like walking through this before the show tonight, we never really think about dispatchers, which is kind of shameful. But
it's like that you do and you don't, because I feel like it's you do, but it's that kind of second thought, which is
right.
And I'm just saying what it is, and I'm guilty as anybody else. We know that it's there, but you really just don't take that extra thought to go, man, this is really serious. This is really impactful.
It's yeah. I mean, it's kind of a matter of perspective. You're like, wait, oh yeah, I never thought about it like that.
But without further ado, she is here with us. She's actually here live in Badge to the Bone headquarters. And Kari, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Excited to be here.
Great to have you.
It's great to have you here, particularly right here in Badge to the Bone headquarters.
It's pretty awesome in here.
We like it.
We do, especially with the Vader head glasses. I'm surprised she didn't walk out and be like, these guys.
What a bunch of nerds.
These nerds. I'm leaving.
That's okay. I'm my nerd in my own way, so.
And we can appreciate that.
Yeah, we can. So, so you have spent a career dispatching. Do you want to kind of take us through where you were working and the types of work you were doing?
Sure. So I started out back in 2006 for I'd say a decent sized county as a dispatcher. And through the years there, I worked my way up through being a training officer, an assistant supervisor, and a quality assurance manager for that agency. We dealt with all sorts of crazy calls. But it's a pretty busy county, I would say. Denny, you agree?
Yes, and I'm familiar with that because I worked at the same jurisdiction. So it is busier and has only gotten busier over time. But yes, very busy.
So I was there for about 11 years, and then I transferred to a state agency where I worked for 2 years, and I was provided the opportunity to go to a county that was closer to where I lived. And I worked there for 3 years and then decided it was time to hang up my headset. I was done. I couldn't deal with the trauma anymore.
So you're not dispatching anymore at all?
Correct.
Okay, wow.
16 and done.
Okay, I definitely can appreciate that.
16 and done.
16 and done. There's no way I was going to make it another 14 so I could retire.
So how was it with your first locality? Because I mean, I didn't work in that locality. I've done some work in that locality, but I live there, so I do know that it is pretty busy.
Well, I can tell you, courtesy of the first county I work for, I have been diagnosed with PTSD from the shitstorm of calls that we had to listen to, the wonderful treatment from our management and senior leadership we had to deal with, and, some of the officers and firefighters were dicks too.
Yeah, no doubt.
We do that sometimes.
So do we.
Now, when you're there, obviously you had, and we'll go over some of these because I know you've had some significant incidents that have stood out and really stuck with you. But what is offered for you guys? Did y'all do any debriefing? Did you do anything after the fact? Any after, when you have some of these serious incidents? I mean, and I can think of a whole bunch of them just from being there. But and I know on the road, we tried to do a decent job. Didn't do as good then, but we would have some debriefs, or we'd have peer support show up, and the county docs show up and have some debriefs after some of these incidents. Did y'all have that in ECC?
Not to the quality that you all had on the road. We had our training manager at the time when I was there, she's since been promoted. She was a big advocate for mental health and caring for the dispatchers, and tried to put together a really good peer support team. Sorry about that. But unfortunately, some of the participants on the team were chosen by popularity and not trust. And the management and our senior leadership did not support mental health. They actually told us, if any of these calls are affecting you, that's your problem and there's something wrong with you, that we shouldn't be impacted by the things that we listen to.
That was actually said?
Yes.
Jeez. Wow.
And I actually participated in one specific peer review where the incident really fucked with my head. And instead of going through it and trying to process it and figure out what was triggering me, it became a critical review of everything that I did wrong.
All right, let me
Wow.
see if I can wrap my head around.
I'm not wrapping my head around that.
That's why I got to go back. Now I'm already hurting.
Okay, so while Denny gets his head screwed on, because I'm not far behind him, there's a number of people that listen to this podcast that are not on the job. They're not in public safety. They don't know what goes on the ECC side. So walk us through, like, are you doing dispatching as in you're talking to the officers, or you're doing call taking? What are you doing, and what does each entail?
So I can say it depends on the jurisdiction. The two main county agencies that I worked with, if you were on police radio, you did not have to answer phones. However, any other position that you're working on, you were responsible for answering the phone calls, talking on the radio, managing multiple incidents, multiple units at one time. So there's a chance that you're working a fire radio, you're given CPR instructions, then you have to dispatch a working fire that comes out, and you have to do both. You have to be listening to both. You have to manage both. And you can't miss anything, because come that Monday morning quarterbacking, they're going to tell you everything you did wrong.
So it's safe to assume that anybody that's actually calling into ECC, they are not calling to tell you about the great day they've had, right?
No. I guess, no, they're calling you because they're having what they feel is the worst day of their life. And it's up to us as the dispatchers to, I guess, try to put them at ease until a field personnel can get on scene to address whatever issue they're dealing with. But no, it's not calling to say, hey, thank you, we love you guys.
And you're hearing things when somebody's calling in. You're hearing many times whatever the reason for the call, you're hearing that in real time.
I have talked to a gentleman, and I was the last voice he heard as he shot himself on the phone with me. I have been on the phone with a gentleman who jumped out of his second-story window and listened to him plea for his family who was trapped inside the house on fire. I've been on the phone with a lady who was trapped herself inside a house fire and tried to talk her into getting low, trying to get out. She wasn't able to. The house was too full of smoke. I ended up losing voice contact with her. The phone was still connected. And when fire got on scene, I was able to direct them back to where the phone was located. Fortunately, they were able to find her and get her out, and she lived. But that 1 week, I took 3 working house fires, 2 involved fatalities, and fortunately, this lady lived.
All right, so I'm going to just jump in because I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it. So with that little bit that you've told us there, those incidents, that's already tough. And you're telling me that from the management perspective, that if one of those incidents were to be bothersome for you or to cause issues or just have emotional issues with dealing with those, that their position was that is a personal problem and it's your own personal problem. Deal with it yourself.
Pretty much, yes. We weren't viewed from the law enforcement side either as an option for debriefs. They didn't think that impacted us. So I know fire, law enforcement would do their debriefs after large incidents, after an officer-involved shooting, etc. We're on the one side of the radio and all we hear is shots fired, and we have no idea in which direction has anybody been hit. And they don't think about how that impacts you because we care about the people on the other end of the radio.
And that was the other, I forgot to mention that the other thought is that you're just communications. This shouldn't bother you kind of mindset.
Yeah, you're just a dispatcher. You're not out there seeing this. You're
wow.
You're just processing this phone call or this radio transmission going to the next one. So why would it impact you?
And that was something that was actually said.
Maybe not those exact words, but yes.
And just so we're clear, I mean, this is not the first time we've talked. And you don't strike me as somebody who is even remotely fragile.
No, not at all.
Right.
I'm pretty badass if I tell you, I say so.
And I would echo that as well. And not that that's a negative thing to be fragile per se, but you carry yourself very positive, very headstrong. For you to come out and say, hey, these things are bothersome. That should be a clue that this stuff is no joke.
A little scary at first to admit that I had some, I guess, mental health impacts from the job. And as I was trying to treat myself, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna be vocal and I'm gonna advocate. I'm gonna tell people, hey, I've started medication to try and help me, because someone has to break the stigma. Someone has to open up and say, look, we are people too. Y'all, we try to paint the picture of the scene for you guys when you're responding, but all we can do is go off of what the caller's telling us. So when they say somebody just broke into my house, they have a gun, they're attacking my husband, we picture in our heads the worst case scenario. And we're trying to remain calm, paint this picture for you guys, make sure that our voices don't escalate or you hear the nervousness in our voices, because that impacts you guys. Y'all get nervous, y'all get excited. So, we see the worst and we don't actually get closure from what you guys see on the road very often.
From a management standpoint, did you get the sense that it was like, oh, well, they just want a couple days off to do whatever? Or
no, I would say from the management's perspective, it was, well, this didn't impact me, so why should it impact you? And the reality is the calls that we're taking today on a regular basis is not what the management took 20, 30 years before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, obviously I was with that agency, and
to their credit, that agency has made some, at least what I think are some very positive changes.
Absolutely.
They have, and they're taking a lot of good positive steps on mental and emotional wellness within the agency. A lot of really proactive steps, and I will give them the shout that they are really getting on the cutting edge of what agencies are doing right now. So kudos to them. You can never do too much, but I do think they are making a strong concerted effort to be a leader in that front for their agency.
No, I 100% agree with that.
But that being said, when I was there, I remember being in a watch commander position and having one of those really bad calls that I could see the looks on the faces there going, okay, we probably need to have peer support or some sort of debrief over this. And I would send folks that I knew, the fire department usually debriefs after every call. They debrief right there at the fire station. And not every call, but every call that might have some significance to it. So they debrief right there while they're on duty at the station. So I would send them because they would let them participate. And I remember there's a couple calls we had, and it affected a lot of officers. And the thought was, we need to do a debrief on this because this is gonna stick with them. And I could see it on their faces, but and it never. I never made the call, and it's on me. I never made the call on the dispatch going, hey, does your dispatcher need to come here and meet at this fire station, this substation, whatever, and take part of this? It just didn't, that's on me, and that's a ball drop on my end, and that definitely bothers me that, I feel like now I have a feeling that I would have probably been told, no, they're fine, or no, we don't have the manpower to get somebody off the radio. I think I would have been denied having them there, but at least if I was calling and asking, going, hey, they were taking this call, they were getting the information, can you release them for an hour or so for a debrief? But, it didn't, and I think that's probably a lot of those in supervision or in that position don't think about that. Don't think about that, hey, I need to include communications in what we're doing here because they're just as affected by it.
No, I'm embarrassed to say that. Same here. I mean, the times that I've been involved in debriefs, dispatch was never mentioned, which is, I guess we're dropping the ball. I think we definitely are dropping the ball with that.
Well, Denny, in all reality, even like you said, even if you all would have called up, we don't have the staffing. We didn't have the staffing. And yes, you all take this incident and you realize it impacts your people, and y'all's theory, which I support, hey, we can hold the minor calls, the barking dogs.
Yes.
I only got 9 chicken nuggets in my McDonald's meal.
Yes.
And yes, I took that call. So those calls can hold. But
Yes.
from a dispatch side, we can't hold. We can't put the 911 calls on hold. We can't put the non-emergency calls on hold. We can't tell people, oh, we're just going to take 15-minute break so we can take a breather. We have to swallow whatever feeling we have and move on to the next incident.
No, and I appreciate that. I guess where it catches me is, even though technically you're not the supervisor I wasn't the supervisor for emergency communications. However, if you're in a watch commander position, I do think you're the supervisor for everybody. I think everybody falls under your umbrella.
Right.
So the fact that it didn't register me that I needed to make the call down there to check and see what we can do to support that end as well. I don't like that. It bothers me that I should have. I just didn't. And I don't think most probably did. I can only remember one real debrief where we had dispatch involved, and that was days later, but it was some debrief, but mainly it was a critique of how the incident went, not so much of a debrief.
Right.
So.
And just to be clear, and maybe this is part of the problem, emergency communications is not treated excuse me, is not treated as public safety employment in Virginia.
Correct. We're classified as secretaries.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem.
It's and kudos to you for pointing that out to us Jurassic jackwagons that really should have known this all along.
Yeah, and it's like you do, but you don't. Yeah, if that makes sense. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I wish I had done better at it on my end of involving communications with, anything after action that we had.
Well, it was ingrained in you all not to think about dispatch. Dispatch was badge bunnies, So
well, ordinarily keeping cops out of dispatch, and it's probably I mean there's reasons.
That is true, and they did try to drive a wedge between, the road and then dispatch, and there's reasons behind it, but I think
Absolutely.
they carried it too far.
Yes.
I think it carried too far where now dispatch becomes isolated as opposed to just having some good strict guidelines that we follow and monitoring them They just drove kind of built that Great Wall of China in between the two, and then they just become isolated.
Yeah.
And now I guess we're reaping some unfortunate consequences from that.
So, Kari, how did you recognize that maybe you're having some issues?
Sleep was my biggest thing. I struggled with sleep. I had nightmares. I was in a relationship with an officer. They helped identify some issues. There were situations where I realized I was constantly talking to people as if they were citizens on the phone instead of people within my life. And I just felt like I was on this dark path. And it turns out I was. In 2017, I actually tried to kill myself. And due to, I guess, divine intervention or whatever you want to call it, I'm still here today, able to tell my story and hopefully save someone else's life by being open about the impacts that this shit has on people.
Are you willing to talk about kind of that moment when you made that decision, what led up to it, and how you avoided it?
Sure. I was dealing with relationship issues. I hated the job. I actually had just transitioned to the state department that I was working with. So I was then having to learn a new job. Recently experienced the loss of my father, which we anticipated. He had gone into hospice. And then 4 months later, my brother suddenly passed away. And, I'd been in EMS since the late 90s. And we're taught through there, you just got to turn off that emotion, dissociate from what's going on. And apparently I got really good at that until I didn't. And I was going to counselors off and on, determined that, or they told me I was doing great, was making progress. Of course I am, because I'm telling you every single thing that you want to hear. I'm not telling you the truth. From working on the phone, I know what you need to hear, how to get to where we need to go, but I wasn't helping myself. And things just got really shitty. And I was in a situation where I determined that things would be better for everybody if I was gone. My current counselor, I joked with her one day, and I was like, I had everything planned out. It was going to be great. My family could deal with the emotions of my loss, but man, they were going to be financially set because I had some great life insurance. So, they could buy away their emotions. Go buy something in memory of me or something. So I was walking to get a gun to kill myself. And I was probably about 1.5 feet or so from reaching it. And my dog, she was about a year old at the time. She's an English Mastiff. She actually knocked me down and laid on top of me until I got some clarity in my head. But I was ready. I had come to terms with everything. I had said goodbye to my ex. And it was time. It was good. It was going to be great. It sucked that I was going to do it at my house, but we could sell the house. I didn't worry too much about the people who would have to respond because I figured it couldn't be too bad. I was in the bathroom, so that's really easy to clean up. But it wasn't about them anymore. It was about me and what was going to be best for me and best for my family, and that was going to be for me to not be here. And when I finally came to with some clarity, I called one of my friends who was an officer for that county. And I told that person what happened, and I said, I need you to take me to the hospital. And that's when I went and self-checked myself in and actually got on a better path to where I am today.
Wow.
That's a tough spot to be in. It's just, trust me, I know.
So what helped you come around?
It's actually an interesting situation. I have lost memory of a lot of the time of some of the trauma time that I had gone through, and not remembering some of that until it's triggered has really helped get better. because as I'm learning what my triggers are, I can then address it because I've learned to cope with emotions and with feelings now through this amazing counselor I have. And I also got some diagnoses. I'm on a medicine regimen, which has helped, but I'm talking and I'm trying to, normalize the fact that mental health is real and that we all are dealing and seeing shit that we shouldn't have to deal with and see. It's the worst of the worst, but unfortunately it's also part of life. So if I talk about it and tell my story, it's strengthening me, but maybe it's protecting someone else.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's important. I hope people clue in on that from what I'm getting and from what most folks that we talk to, it's almost like it's a real holistic way in which you manage it. Not just a counseling. You've got counseling, maybe add some medication in there. It's your own, personal way of how you're coping and managing the things that you're doing to help you. It's a working function of several things. It's not just I'm going to go see a counselor and that counselor's going to fix it.
And that's a really good point. We had talked before. I am currently on, I believe, my 4th or 5th counselor. And the first one I went to, within 5 minutes of being in the session, the man told me, all of your problems stem from your parents and your childhood.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, okay, time to go.
It's like straight out of like some bullshit textbook.
Right? Yeah.
And like I told you, I was able for 2 of my counselors to tell them what they wanted to hear. And I realized that wasn't working for me. And now with this one, she knows all my deep, dark stories. But you have to keep counselor shopping, I guess is the way to put it, until you find the one you connect with.
Yeah, we brought that up before. I think that's real important, that because not every counselor is going to be that fit. And that was also a common theme that we've heard from others, is that I told them what they wanted to hear. So that's not helpful. That's just not helpful at all.
But you know what? That's kind of in our nature.
It is, no doubt. It is.
Because I had a conversation with somebody recently about that how much of this is, real, legit. And then, of course, in our profession, we're battling that, suck it up, or you're weak, or you're just, looking for some PTO. We don't like to ever admit that something's wrong.
Sure.
We're superhuman.
I'm not even sure I'd go that far. I never.
That's how I felt.
It's just we're at, whether it's police, fire, EMS, emergency communications, we just like to, everything's fine, whatever, keep moving.
Well, I think it does get ingrained in that it's a tough job. You're going to see some things. You're going to have some things to deal with. You just got to figure out a way to manage it, and you got to tough it out. And you just become naturally and I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's not. Nothing's fine. It's not fine. But you just tell folks that because you don't want to admit that, man, that really bothered me. I didn't sleep, and it's been on my mind all day today. And now I'm walking in the roll call, and I'm still thinking about it because it's bothering me.
And everybody's an individual.
Yes.
So everybody's going to process things differently. So what bothers you may not bother me, and vice versa. But we've had this conversation before that, we all kind of get into this line of work where we expect that, shitty things are going to happen. You are going to see and hear horrible shit. And I think most of us have made peace with that, and are okay with that, can process that. But at the same time, after a while, the armor starts to chip away.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
I think one of the big things as well is if you fall into a public safety world, it can easily fully encompass your entire life. So you lose contact with the outside world, the people you were friends with before, your high school friends, whatever. And everybody you associate with now is within public safety. So, when they tell you in the academy, you got to keep your outside life, that is critical. Because otherwise, all you do is live and breathe and talk whatever it is you're going through work.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. I mean, it becomes your identity. It becomes your sole identity of who you are.
It shouldn't be, but
shouldn't.
it happens.
It does
really, really easily.
It does, and it's just a short amount of time before that encompasses everything you are. And I speak to folks still now today that are in law enforcement. Some of them have gotten out, and some of them still struggle with that. That they're out of law enforcement, but they're struggling with that identity issue.
I'll be very candid right now and say I'm kind of, as I'm looking down the barrel of retirement, I'm kind of struggling with that myself.
No, yeah,
I mean, it's like,
and I didn't.
I'm like,
days,
woohoo, retirement. Yeah. Well, wait just a minute.
No, that was a tough thing for me when I left. And I can't say that there still aren't some days that I struggle with that aspect of it, but I tell everybody you've got to realize that it is not your identity. It's a job. It's a profession. It's a noble job, and it is a noble profession, and you do a service to your community by being out there and handling those things, other things that other people wouldn't do, but it does not define who you are. It's not who you are. It is at the end of the day, it is just a job. And you've got to have other things because, we all, no matter what, whether you leave by your own accord or whether you get pushed out or whether you retire, we are all leaving that profession at some point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody is. So if that is your sole identity, your sole being, your sole purpose, then it's going to be tough. And it just shouldn't be that way.
No, but it is something that is very easy to fall into.
It is.
So, Kari, you had your suicide attempt. This is while you're at the first agency, correct?
I had been at the state agency for about 2.5 months.
Okay. You started to work your way back. Then you got back into public safety communications.
Correct. Which was probably one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life.
Getting back in?
Yes.
Hey, let's have some more of this.
Let's take another round.
I'm very thankful for the opportunities that presented itself through that agency, but getting back into 911 was absolutely horrible mental health-wise for me.
So, in light of everything that you had gone through up to that point, how did you even come to that decision?
Well,
does it go back to that identity thing we were just talking about, and just that how hard it is to step away?
I was officially going through a divorce. My house was sold. Like I said, this county was hiring. It is where I was currently living, and it seemed like a sign that I was being called there. I had originally applied there back in 2005. Couldn't make it due to political reasons, which we won't get into that. But I was like, oh, well, it's finally my time. So I applied, and I did well. I convinced myself, hey, I know I've been out for just 2 years, but I can do it. And I'm not like patting myself on the back, but I was a pretty decent rock star at the first organization. So I knew I could hang here. And although it was the same job, it was night and day. It sucked having to learn a whole new CAD system. I would chuckle at my coworkers when they were holding like 3 barking dogs and, motor vehicle accident. And, they're freaking out on the radio. And I was like, guys, I've had to hold dead bodies before. Like, not physically, but hold calls of, or, unit to start to this shooting just occurred. That's a normal night for us where I used to work.
Yeah,
and the county
assignment to follow armed robbery.
Exactly. And the county you went to is a a slower paced locality.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be like a great retirement dispatch job, and boy, was I wrong. I actually got to the point, which is how I knew it was time to go, where I did not care whatsoever about the people who were calling. I had never dropped in my professionalism to them. They got the same customer service and quality of service that I would have given my mom had she called. But the whole time on the inside, I was struggling just with how miserable I was. Why are you calling for this? Are you for real? And the only thing I truly cared about was the men and women on the other side of the radio getting home. So that kind of messes with your head too when you don't care about one of your primary customers that you're serving.
At the same time, that is an understandable coping mechanism. I mean,
Yeah, just detaching yourself.
yeah, I mean, you would by no means be the first person to do that.
Right.
No, I think a lot of us do that. I think that's what's hard for people outside of the profession to hear from an officer or firefighter or what have you, a dispatcher, and hear them talk about a brutal scene where it seems like it doesn't affect them. It may, but they just to not show it. It's kind of like, well, geez, how can you be so stone cold about something like that? And it's just that's the detachment.
Or we go the other way, like, well, how can you make a joke about that? It's like,
We used to get those complaints all the time. You have the media out there, and they see you're standing at a double homicide or a triple homicide, and there's two officers out there, and they're standing by crime scene taking, they're laughing like they're talking about what they saw on Saturday Night Live, and they're like, that's just so unprofessional. And
a survival mechanism is we
Right.
can fucking make a joke out of anything.
oh, anything, no doubt.
Anything. There is nothing off limits.
And the more twisted, the better.
Exactly.
Oh, that is so true. It's so true.
In fact, you get concerned when your coworkers aren't cracking jokes over something. You're like, oh man, is something really wrong with you?
Right? Yeah. That's how ass backwards that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, like when I know
We're
somebody's
messed up.
well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, but if somebody's not doing that, then I'm like, ooh, should I be worried?
Right? Is there? Yeah. Are they really actually having some issues?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so hard to decipher that, because I know for me, when I was going through a lot, and when I was just way down, you would not know. You would not know. And I think if you talk to a lot of people during time frames when things were going on, they would know, because I'm smiling, joking, laughing. I am having a ball, but that's what I'm presenting. But on the back end, or when I got home, or when I left, I'm just destroyed.
Absolutely, 100%.
That rings very familiar.
Yeah, unfortunately, right?
And actually, we would look at the people who didn't have the sense of humor and go, you're not going to make it. You should go ahead and quit.
Right? Yeah, that you're soft. You're not going to make it. Man. But, I do want to come back to when we talked about how, Kari, how you got better and things that you did, and the counselor being a big one, and having to go through several counselors, and then you have some medication that's helping you. And I think that's important, because people are sometimes so against any kind of medication. That's something to look at. Those are things that can be helpful. It could be short-term or long-term. But you're also talked about how you talking about your experience is helpful. Is that accurate?
Yes, 100%.
And I think that's important, because it's back to that, well, someone's not just going to prescribe me something, I'm going to take that and everything's going to be roses. There's more to it than that. And I've noticed a lot of folks that have been through a lot of shit and had some, emotional stress and issues, that one of the things that has helped them is talking about what they went through, in the hopes that, someone else hears it and maybe they don't have to go through it as bad as I did, or they don't have to get as far down as I did. And I think that's important. And I think you told us that you are you volunteering with an agency? Is there a group that you're doing some work with?
I'm actually with a group called Reboot, and they offer programs for combat veterans, first responders, as well as civilian. And it's a program that helps you basically address and learn to cope with your trauma that you faced in life, or as well as through first responder world or combat veteran world. And it is loosely faith-based, but they don't shove God down and the Bible down your throat.
Sure.
But they make it a part of, you have to have faith in something. And it is an
I
incredible program. I did the first responder first, and it's a 12-week program. You get a booklet, you have instructors, and in order to lead the class, you have to have completed that class, and you have to be a first responder to teach the first responder. You have to be a combat vet to teach combat vet. And then
So this is peer support, peer based.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so.
Now, do you lead classes?
I have. I originally took the first responder, and then in the fall, I took it last spring, and then in the fall of last year, I helped teach first responder, and I took the civilian trauma this, I guess, late winter, spring. I graduate next weekend, I believe, is our graduation, and that one, the civilian trauma, was actually a hard class for me. Because I was sitting there and it was like being in dispatch listening to these people talk. And one thing that's big in Reboot is confidentiality. So I can't speak to their stories, their experiences, but
Sure.
But for mine, it actually helped me understand why some of the citizens, I can't call them citizens, customers, why some of the customers
You can. It's a safe space here. You can say citizens.
Thank you. Why some of the citizens stayed in those relationships, kept going back to the man or woman who was belittling them, assaulting them, verbally, mentally, whatever. It gave me a different perspective. The civilian drama world is very uncomfortable, so I appreciate going through it. I probably would not teach that one because I associate more with the first responders, but it was a good experience to go through and humanize the people on the other side of the phone.
So you're spending a pretty good amount of time with this.
Yes. Once a week for usually 2.5 hours.
Now, do you think you participating with this, even when you're leading a class and you're helping others, is it also helping you on the other side too?
Absolutely. As
Huge.
a leader, I get just as much out of it, if not more, than the people sitting on the other side. And that might come from the fact that I've been through the class. So, I know it's coming. I know what's been said in the past, but when that other person comes in with their different perspective, it's eye-opening for me. So I highly recommend the course for anyone, and it has been huge, life-changing for several of the people that have been in my classes.
And I'm glad you said that because, as we're doing this podcast, I like to think that has been a consistent theme over all the episodes we've done thus far, all the folks that have come on thus far that have somehow managed to turn their negative experience into hopefully a positive experience for
Every single one of
else.
them. All of them. Rick, Nick, Chris,
Yeah.
now Kari, everyone has resonated that they've taken the negative, but they were able to do some good things with it. And I would put that out there for anybody out there that's a first responder, including dispatch at ECC. You're part of it too.
Yep.
If you have gone through some shit, if you have found yourself in that dark place, and particularly if you found your way out, talk about it. Tell your story. Come on here and talk about it. Go on another podcast and talk about it. Go with you're one of these groups that help other first responders and just lay it out there. You will find that it is therapeutic for yourself. It's almost, it kind of gets that off your back. It's up, it lifts that weight off of you to just, own it and put it out there.
I mean, let's be honest. Why are you and I even sitting here in front of microphones?
well, right. That's exactly why. I mean,
You're an outlet for us.
hopefully.
Or ourselves, chicken or the egg.
You're right. Good point.
Shit, I
But
don't know at this point.
But I mean, I think I know there's a ton of stories out there. I know there's a ton of folks out there that have been through some shit, and a lot have made it out. And Chris told that story about the officer that jumps down in the hole last episode. I love that story.
Oh yeah,
I love that story, and I kind of repeat it again. I won't say it as eloquent as he did, but the officer's down at the bottom of that hole, can't find a way out in a dark place, and what he had a pastor or a priest come by. Hey, can you help me? Well, I can't help you, but I can pray for you. I can put you on the prayer list and all that stuff. And then he had what a doctor came by. I think it's something to that effect. And hey, can you help me? Well, I can prescribe something for you and this and that. And then another officer comes up and jumps in the hole with him. And he's like, what the fuck, man? Now we're both in here. What the hell did you do that for?
yeah, but I know the way out.
Yep. He said, I've been here and I know the way out.
Well, Denny, I actually was going to bring that up to you because that actually really resonated with me when I was listening, because I hit up all your podcasts now.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And I advertise for you all as much as I can.
And we appreciate that.
But one thing that I think the agencies, whether it be police, fire, EMS, mental health agencies, one place they're lacking is actually bringing in the people who've been there to talk to the people. And I think Chris hit on that last week.
He did.
And
yep.
like one of the big things that I try to tell people from, whatever walk of the world that they're in, if you know someone who is considering suicide, don't ever look at them and say that's not the answer. And, my mom said, well, why do you say that's not the answer? And I said, well, Mom, you don't know what the question is. So you don't know what question brought me to the decision that suicide might be the best answer.
That is... I appreciate that answer.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that answer. That is a very good perspective.
So my focus is more on, all right, so what got us to this? What questions are we asking? Okay, so suicide, I'm going to leave that on the table for you, but we're going to talk about some better options in hopes that you make the decision, because it has to be you that makes the decision that you are going to live. Because in my situation, once my dog got off of me, I could have gotten up and, finished the job. But I had to make that conscious decision to choose to live.
And if I can, the suicide thing here, and I'm just going to, this is strictly my opinion, my perspective. It's not about... I don't think it's about ending pain for ourselves. It's, well, I'm a problem. I'm in the way. I'm causing other people pain or discomfort. So that's why I'm opting for this. It's not we're in our own brains doing it for the betterment of others, not to end our own pain, if that makes any sense. Again, that's just my perspective, my thought on it.
No, you hit the nail on the head. You really did. Absolutely. And man, just hearing you, I don't even like to think about that, because that hit the nail on the head, man. You really did.
Yeah. For what it's worth.
But yeah, I think people are afraid to talk about suicide because that's a scary topic.
Yeah, and one thing they taught us in dispatch is, and so many new dispatchers are scared to say, how do you want to hurt yourself? Or do you have a plan? And they're like, oh, I'm going to give somebody an idea. No, you're not. Rest assured, if somebody's calling you, they probably already have a plan.
Oh, they've already figured that out.
They've gone through some test trials probably, to see what's going to work. So you can't implant that decision into them. It's your job to try and give them other options until the proper help gets on scene.
Yeah, you can't just diffuse a bomb that has already gone off. That's already gone off. And you need to talk about it. You just need to confront it. But I think a lot of folks are afraid to mention it. I don't want to put that. I don't want them thinking about that. I don't want it in their mind. I'm sorry, but it's already there. It is, or you cannot extract that from their mind. It's already there. It's time to confront it.
And looking at our youth, they see suicide everywhere, and we've raised a generation, and although I'm not actually a parent, I have helped raise my nieces and nephew. We have taught them not to feel, not to know how to cope, not to process what you're going through. You want that quick instant gratification. And so they make this life ending decision on something that if they would have given it 5 more minutes, probably would have been all better. And really, my generation, even, I don't feel like we were taught how to cope.
I don't think mine either, really.
I mean, we're Gen Xers, and it was, rub some dirt on it and keep going.
Right.
Just drink from the hose and keep going.
Right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was a whole lot of, yeah. That's just what you did.
Be seen, don't be heard.
Mm-hmm. Not as much that, but just suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's
how the police training was too. I think we mentioned it the very first one. I can't even really remember what the training was, other than it's, hey, y'all are gonna probably see some really bad stuff. You're gonna see some horrible things. You're gonna see some things that people shouldn't have to deal with. You're gonna catch everybody at their worst day. You're gonna see the worst of the worst of the worst. And if it bothers you, you probably need to go talk to somebody about it. But otherwise, it's the job you signed up for, so you need to be prepared for that. And all right, so
shit. I mean, I think back to my basic academy. I don't even think I got that.
I think that's all they gave us. That's pretty much, if it bothers you, this is the job you signed up for. All right, let's talk about motor vehicle code.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting much of it now.
I think it depends where. I know Chesterfield's doing it. I know they're doing it in the academy. They're talking about it, and I know they were big on what is that? I'm drawing a blank. And I can't even think of the book out, the emotional wellness book that they were handing out, or I think they were giving it in the academy now. And I can't even think of the guys. Now I have to Google it now. I read it, and it's been so long. Emotional wellness for law enforcement. I think that's it. Somebody listens is hollering his name right now, hollering at the radio.
It's that.
And I know, and I forgot. I'm sorry. My memory freaking sucks.
That happens with age.
I'm too busy focused on the Vader head ice cube.
Well, I would like to see agencies, and some are doing it, but have more in-service training when it comes to the mental health stuff, and not just for the citizens out in the field, but for you guys as well.
It would be nice, as somebody who works extensively on the training and headquarters side. You're always trying to cram whatever in.
Dr. Gil Martin, that's it. There it is.
There, yep,
Emotional survival for law enforcement. Sorry, I've read it. Yes, and it's pretty decent. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I saw it and I had to yell it out.
That's it.
I'll forget it again. That's it.
I am. Everybody's so pushed for time, and staffing is so shitty that you're lucky to cram in what you cram in. And I hate to say that, but when command staffs are sitting there, they're going, well, we need that. That's essential, and that's kind of essential, and this is not essential.
Yeah, you got to invest in your people if you want to keep them and keep them trained. Law enforcement right now has a huge target on their back because, a fair few has ruined the reputation for the masses. And, yeah.
Well, I do think, thankfully, there are some agencies that are realizing that if you do not make this a priority, the emotional wellness, the emotional health of your agency a priority, then you are not going to have outstanding officers going into the public and serving. You're not going to have that. And that's why you have some, we've talked about that, where we have some of these incidents where they go off the rails and it just goes to shit. But it starts with having solid emotional wellness for your officers if you're going to put quality people out there to do that job, to do that difficult job. And I think some agencies are starting to realize that man, we got to get, it's going to start here.
Well, whether we're talking about compensation, whether we're talking about training, or whether we're talking about, in this case, wellness, it is the agencies that say we're going to view our personnel as resources, not liabilities, that are going to be the ones that are going to really succeed in this climate.
Right, and valuable resource, not just a boot on the ground.
Right, because we can always get a boot on the ground.
And we do all the time. And
we can always get some crazy mope to strap on a gun belt and a badge and go out there and do that.
Exactly right. And that's the exact crazy mope that probably shouldn't be strapping on a gun belt and running out there. So I do think there are agencies that are seeing that. Unfortunately, I think those agencies are a small fraction of the overall profession.
I hope
realizing that.
I hope that we're getting more. I think we're getting more. I want to believe we're getting more, but there's still a lot. There's still a lot of work to be done on that front.
As they consider your piece of paper that you got from a college, that $30,000, $50,000, $75,000 piece of paper, they're using that for a standard to bring in somebody to work the road when, maybe college wasn't for you, but you have these great communication skills where you could, talk a person into a paper bag. You're going to be a better candidate than that person who has a piece of paper and said, hey, I can test well.
It sounds like she was speaking directly to my agency.
Well, and that's a good, valid point, and I'm not trying to knock folks that have their degree. I mean, I went back to school. I didn't have it when I got into law enforcement. I went back later. But, I think there's some positives to having that education and gutting that out, but to make that like your deciding fact that if you hold that's your golden ticket, that shouldn't be a golden ticket. It should be something you should evaluate.
Yes.
Sure. If you have that and then you have other things along with it, great candidate. But if that's all you have, that's the only thing you're waving is your golden ticket that you got from whatever university, that's
good luck.
A bad idea.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. I think each candidate, I think, should do a little better job of really evaluating fully each candidate, not just education.
Oh yeah.
Focus on everything. It should be an encompassing review of each individual and what they bring and what they can offer.
And that goes for dispatch as well.
Absolutely.
There were times that we brought in candidates, and I'm not age bashing or anything here, but if you're bringing in...
That's okay, we do.
Oh, well, you're old, and you just put your glasses on, so...
Wow.
Denny,
Wow.
Can't you see that font from where you are?
Wow.
Can I see the font? The airplane
Wow.
flying over can see the font. The pilot is reading Alan's phone right now.
I feel attacked.
Good.
I feel attacked.
But when, they would bring in a 55, 65-year-old person to come try and work a communications job, we see people who've been in the system for 25 years and they're like late 40s and they're struggling to keep up with the technical commands of the position. And you're going to bring in someone who bagged at a grocery store to come work in dispatch and you think they're going to be able to keep up. But I mean, they checked all the little boxes on that application. So
you can speak and you know how to answer a phone. You're hired.
Exactly. You can type 32 words a minute. We'll take you. Well, you're going to fail if you can only type 32 words a minute. Yeah, you wouldn't make it.
I can type more than 32 words a minute.
Have you actually timed yourself?
No.
But is it correct?
Then how do you...
Yes, it is.
Yeah, is it readable? I mean, typing 32 words of gibberish doesn't count, Alan.
It's in Braille.
Yes, I typed this in 32 minutes. It says... Yeah, gibberish.
Man, fuck y'all. I write for a living. and it's readable and legible.
Do you
I
have
believe you.
Do you
I
have a
believe you.
dispatcher check it for you?
No.
I didn't either because I didn't want to know all the mistakes I had.
Well, they're secretaries. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot of shit flying back and forth right now. Damn.
Denny, one more thing I wanted to throw out there. You
Yeah.
mentioned before, or it actually might have been Al, where people started throwing the mental health words around, and it might be in search for PTO. I know a lot of public safety agencies offer mental health days for their staff. As a dispatch, because we're not public safety, you don't get a mental health day. So one reason that dispatchers are 911 dispatchers across the country are trying to fight to be classified as public safety is some of those benefits that you all in public safety get the benefit of.
Oh, all the line of duty benefits. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
you all can be diagnosed with PTSD and get disability for a little bit or long term, depending on the impacts of it. And dispatchers as secretaries, they can't get PTSD. All they're doing is typing words.
Now, aren't they looking at making that change in Virginia?
Yeah, they're trying.
Nothing came out of this General Assembly session.
I mean,
Nothing.
That definitely needs to be changed. That's not good.
They've been fighting this for the 16 years I've been in, and I couldn't tell you how long before that.
I'm going to take my glasses off so I'm not judged anymore.
And you don't need to see anything?
How many fingers am I holding
I
up?
love you.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. It's all the close-up stuff. It happens when you stare at a computer screen and type a lot.
I believe you can type your 32 words a minute. Wow. Well, hopefully legislation comes along and makes that change. I think that would be a huge change, but that's really disappointing that dispatchers don't have the same resources. It's just not. That's just messed up.
Well, like think about it. So you go down into the city, and you may know people, Kari, that work there for the contract EMS service that service the city. Holy shit. What they pay those people
Shit.
for everything that they got to put up with?
Yeah, I don't know why they do it.
Yeah, peanuts.
Yep.
Peanuts. And
Yep.
they run their own ECC.
Oh, do they? I didn't know
Oh,
that.
yeah. They do.
EMS goes to their ECC, fire and law enforcement calls go to the cities.
Yep. You ring 911 in the city for an EMS call, it bounces directly to them, to their employees. So I only imagine how they deal, what they're dealing with.
Well, we'll have to kind of keep an eye on things and see if that comes back around for the General Assembly to hopefully get some progress on that. And I know they're working on some other things too with mental health and public safety. But the question is, does it involve dispatch? I know they're working on.
I don't even know that there was at least one bill this session. Am I right, Kari?
Yes, I believe.
I think there
it
was
the
one bill
yeah.
this session. I don't even know that it got out of committee.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because again, it involves money and.
No, I mean
money for
anything
first
that's,
responders.
Exactly, anything that is a public safety benefit that then you end up with both political parties going, no.
Yeah, we'll pass on that.
But we'll raise our income.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kari, man, I really do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Even if you're throwing shade at me.
Yeah,
That's fine.
It's okay. But I appreciate being able, like I said, to share my story, and hopefully it resonates with somebody. And if anybody listening ever needs somebody to talk to, my phone is on pretty much 24/7. I will share my information with Denny, and if any dispatchers, EMS, whatever, want to reach out, I'm here.
Do you want to put in a plug for your peer support organization?
Talking about Reboot.
Yep.
Reboot.
I'm going to get the website real quick, so hold on 1 second. So if you could stall for me.
We can. But I think one of the takeaways here we definitely need to remember that emergency communications dispatch is a huge part of first responders.
Well,
I'm glad
couldn't do what we do.
No, we
without
couldn't do
them.
any of it, and I'm glad that we had you on tonight, Kari, because we talk about badge to the bone not being. We're heavily focused on law enforcement, no doubt, because that's where Al and I our experience lies. But we have EMS and fire experience as well. So all first responders and everything affecting first responders is all part of badge to the bone, which includes ECC and dispatch, and that's why I think it's so great that we had you on to have that perspective of first responders.
Well, absolutely. And again, thank you. Rebootrecovery.com. Excuse me, my.rebootrecovery.com once you get into the class. But rebootrecovery.com is where you can go. You can sign up for any class that's in your area. These classes are offered all across the state and the country. If you're interested in starting a program in your locality, reach out to my Reboot or the Reboot people on the website. They'll help you get connected with the leader so you can get the program started. And I want to throw out one good thing. The current agency I work with right now, we're working hard to push a provider mental health program. I thank my boss for that because she is a big advocate, and I'm looking forward to helping her with that.
Excellent.
That's great to hear.
Rebootrecovery.com, and we will work on getting that on the website. I know we need to make some updates to the website because we've got some stuff from Chris Scow and whether we still have to get up there. So
We'll get it up on the Facebook page.
Old book face, but we'll definitely get those things up. Just be patient with us. We've got all kinds of shit going on as always, so we're working as fast as we can. But definitely, we appreciate it.
All right, Dee, that was really good.
That was. I'm glad we had her on.
Yeah, right. I'm really thankful for Kari taking the time to come here after all the technical difficulties, everything we went through. But we got it done.
We did. We got it done, and I think a lot of people listening that are in the first responder community will probably have some of the same thoughts that we did. They really just didn't give serious thought to how those things affect the folks on the other end of that radio and the other folks on the other end of those phone calls.
Absolutely. And before we go, because we had a gap, I do want to acknowledge that during that time, we had National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Week.
We did.
Those of you that have never been to the memorial in D.C. absolutely need to go. I took my son up there back in the early part of the spring, trying to get him to understand. He's only 10.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's a very special place. If you haven't had a chance to go, you definitely need to.
Yeah, I agree. We used to go.
Yeah. We used to go all the time.
Every year. It's been a little while since we've been.
And it's high time we get back.
I think it is. I think we need to get up there with some badge to the bone gear and shake hands and
kiss babies and so forth.
Do some.
That's kind of weird.
Shaking babies and kissing hands.
But we also had this past week too. We had National EMS Week.
We did
as well.
Very good. Yep.
I think that is very important to acknowledge. We both have dear friends that were in that, are still in that. I came from EMS prior to getting into law enforcement. You came from fire.
Yep.
So we want to acknowledge all of you in the EMS community. Thank you for everything that you do, because it is a thankless, extremely difficult job.
No doubt. And tomorrow is Memorial Day. So,
yes.
For all our military folks that are serving or have served, thank you for your service.
And it's important to remember all of those, because it's really what Memorial Day is about,
right.
Is those that never returned home.
That's right. The ones that didn't make it back home made the ultimate sacrifice, that gave their lives for our freedoms. And I hope, with everybody on the Memorial Day, everybody wants to cook out and have a great time, and that's fine. But I hope everybody takes a moment to remember and honor those that made that sacrifice so we can have those freedoms.
Right. And I'll be going back to Normandy this summer.
Really?
I went back in it was about 2005, and for those that have never had the opportunity to stand in the American Cemetery over Omaha Beach, if you're not moved to tears standing in the middle of that with all of those white crosses, I don't know who you are.
That is definitely on my bucket list to go see that. Greatest generation ever for this country.
Right. And those that have represented us and paid the ultimate price, whether it was that generation or very recently.
Yep. Yeah.
We thank you. We remember you. We honor your sacrifice.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. But Al, I think that is going to wrap us up for this episode of Badge to the Bone.
It does.
I think it's a good one, man. You know, I think they're all good, but I'm biased.
Exactly. Hey, if you want to reach out to us, let us know how you're doing. You can reach us at wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Badge to the Bone.
Outstanding. Also, don't forget we still have hoodies and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff, and we've had some folks buy them. They really like them, so I think the logo's cool. But again, I'm biased. But check it out. Get some swag.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what? For all our first responders out there, until then, make sure to be safe
and be well.
We'll see you again soon.
Take care.